Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks again for joining us for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the warning advisory chart here, there's an area of red up there on the eastern Arctic coast. That's for a blizzard warning that'll continue this evening, currently in effect up there, and that'll continue up until midnight. And then after midnight, that'll be replaced with a blowing snow advisory. So the winds gusting 40 to 50 miles an hour continuing this evening, gradually diminishing back toward midnight into that 30 to 40 mile an hour gust range. And then the frequent visibilities under a quarter mile or whiteout conditions, that'll become less frequent after midnight. Then the whole thing ends by 6 a.m. tomorrow. The blowing snow advisory here for the east central Arctic coast in the shaded area there, that's out until midnight tonight. And then after midnight, nothing like everywhere else here, no advisories, watches, or warnings out. There are some gale warnings out here for the Aleutians through tomorrow, and then also gale warnings out Sunday and Sunday night here, the Alaska Peninsula up around Kodiak Island, and of course through those windy areas through the Bering Strait there. Yesterday, we had a pretty good storm system here, mostly to the southwest of the Queen Charlotte, spreading moisture up across the central and southern southeast coast. Another system back out through here, a dying front over the southern Bering Sea areas. Kind of a break here over the southwest part of the state, and then some lost clouds in over south central Alaska, and some very cold air gradually filtering southward. And some of that got through the Alaska Range overnight last night or last evening and today, so made temperatures a little more seasonable today over south central Alaska. Some pretty good breaks going on here over the Bristol Bay zone areas there. And then this system having moved through today, so the rain and snow changed over to just some scattered snow showers during the afternoon hours, becoming less and less, while still looking at impulses of clouds and snow coming down out of the Arctic today. Kind of a widespread area of light snow or flurries and areas of fog there along the Arctic coast, and it gets into that blowing snow condition there on the east side. Again, with those gusts over 40 miles an hour occurring on the east side. Lighter winds back here to the west. No wind over the interior today. Looking at a mostly clear day, clear and cold. Some patchy, very patchy areas of fog in around the zone there, where temperatures running 25 to 40 below this afternoon with light winds. A little bit of a breeze here across the Alaska Range, and that helped push that colder air into south central Alaska, into the southern areas here. Yakutat picking up a couple inches of snow over the last 24 hours again, but all this moisture now shifting off into Canada. A few lingering snow showers this morning. The trough still in the vicinity there of the southeast coast. And this front having came northward, linking up with the old one that was there, and that brought about a quarter of an inch of rain to the Pribilof Islands. Again, in the 24-hour period ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Pretty gusty winds out along the southwest coast in areas. The strongest, of course, being at Cape Newenham there with gusts 40 to 45 miles an hour. And snow spreading into Kodiak Island this afternoon, especially down over the southwestern portion, kind of working its way northward. Break up along the North Gulf Coast here. Kind of dry conditions and chilly, maybe a few flurries around. Main low center back here over the Bering Sea. That's bringing those gale force winds out of the west here over the central Aleutians. That's going to remain out tonight, and those stronger winds will be developing here in toward Kodiak. And that cold air continues to pour southward from the Arctic into the northern Bering Sea, and then it kind of dies off right in this area just south or near St. Matthew Island, and then kind of just shifts off to the west there. But winds gusting at Gamble up to that 40 to 45 mile per hour range with temperatures just above zero there. By contrast, Savunga, hardly any wind at all with temperatures a little below zero this afternoon. And again tonight, very cold conditions, well below zero. Some areas dropping into the minus 50s here over the Yukon Flats. Otherwise, 30 to 40 below elsewhere. The Arctic coast, again, still plagued with those systems dropping southeast, kind of clipping the east side there, especially this evening with those blizzard winter weather advisories going. But again, everywhere improving after midnight tonight from west to east up there. High pressure holding again with the cold temperatures. And then this front should make a jog northward here and may push some moisture late tonight up to the North Gulf Coast. Chance of snow maybe in toward the Wrangell Mountains. Some of that could slip on up to Nabesna and Northway in those areas, but definitely more rain coming into the southeast coast. Snow in the north, rain to the south, and kind of a mix in between there. Low pressure holding out here over the Bering Sea for mostly snow occurring down to sea level. Whatever gets down to sea level in some of these areas will be quite wet. Could be mixed with rain at times, but generally looking at a snow situation there up across Kodiak Island with this center up into the Gulf. Another wave here with a lot of moisture. That's going to be rolling right on in late tonight and early tomorrow. And by tomorrow afternoon, this front should be east of the area again. Some pretty good showers following in behind, but tapering off in the afternoon. Winds pretty brisk out of the southwest. Low snow levels, though, with rain and snow mixed at times over the central panhandle with snow up to the north, and the band possibly extending along the coastline there with some leftover moisture over the southeast interior, but not getting too far to the north, pretty much south of the Alaska Range on the east side there. Clear and cold in the interior, not too bad over the Brooks Range. Periods of low clouds and flurries, again, mostly dropping southeastward, so just clipping the central Arctic coast and more of an effect, lower flying conditions there on the east side. But again, those winds will be a lot lighter tomorrow than what you saw today. Still the strong north and northeast winds coming through the Bering Strait across St. Lawrence Island, then taking a turn to the southwest there with the cold air finally getting into the Pribilof. If it doesn't tonight, the precipitation should change over to snow by tomorrow, and chance of snow right up to the southwest coast there and over Bristol Bay. Pretty brisk southwest winds here, again eventually working in towards some of the areas here around Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians. Colder temperatures and a chance of snow. It looks like the bulk of the moisture may possibly stay north of the area and then cut off right along the peninsula to Unimak Island. In those areas, low pressure, more snow out over the Aleutians, but winds not all that strong out in that area. And the outlook for Monday, Arctic front now well down into the Aleutians or beyond, so some scattered snow showers, northeast winds out in that area of the 10 to 20, maybe 25 miles an hour, but pretty light here over the eastern and southeast Bering Sea, not much of a gradient at all. So really no heavy weather expected with this frontal system, just lower flying conditions, some areas of snow right up into Kuskokwim Bay, Bethel, on up the river valleys there. As this warm front pushes northward, look for a break. Could be a pretty nice afternoon here over the Cook Inlet area on up into the Matanuska-Susitna valleys, southern Susitna Valley, then get more moisture as you head northward there toward the Alaska Range. But should be milder air coming northward along with that. And then the next system here spreading rain or snow into Kodiak Island, which will change over to rain Monday evening there, and a lot of moisture heading back up toward the southeast coast. Look for those winds to pick up to 25 to 30 knots. Good for some small craft advisories, possibly minimum gales there along the south coast in the afternoon. And then all that moisture will be streaming northward, so brief snow changing over to rain as that warm air continues to follow on in, and this whole mess will be shifting up to the coast again on Monday evening or Monday night, but staying clear and cold up here over the northern interior, and maybe a break here with light winds and mostly VFR skies even out along the Arctic coast, definitely for the North Slope Brooks Range areas. The temperatures staying below zero up in that area. For this afternoon, temperatures range from 25 at Skagway to 39 down at Annette. These are all 4 p.m. readings. 30 degrees there at Yakutat with a 26. Over at Cordova, Middleton Island, 34 degrees. 19 in Anchorage. 21 Kenai and a 30 down there at Homer. Light snow, 31 degrees at Kodiak up in the Cough River Basin. A little above zero. As high as 3, or actually 8 at Glen Allen, and a minus 29 at Fairbanks there in the Tanana Valley. Colder yet over at Tanana with a minus 33. And there's a minus 38 at Bettles and 42 below the cold spot in the state at 4 p.m. At least what's plotted here, that up there at Arctic Village. And then with the clouds, wind, and flurries here and blowing snow anywhere from 0 to 10 below along the Arctic coast, and minus 10 below or so here over the northwest areas. Kotzebue at 11 below, Nome at 9 above, Unalakleet right at 0, while St. Matthew had 5. 23 below at McGrath this afternoon, edging back up towards 0 as you get down into the deltas there, either side depending on whether you're at Bethel or St. Mary's. 10 out at Macoriac, 36 above at St. George Island. Mid-30s here out over the Aleutians, chillier temperatures with snow showers out at Shemya. And for the Alaska Peninsula, the warm spots today were 41, although they didn't occur at the same time, but 41 degrees at Cold Bay, Unalaska, and Dutch Harbor. Again, Dutch Harbor only picking up about 3/100 of an inch of rain, while Cold Bay had 1/10 of an inch. Most of the precipitation up there over the Pribilofs. And for lows tonight, 40s to minus 50s here, the coldest areas up over the Yukon Flats, to minus 20 to 30 along the Arctic coast, 30 to 40 below over the west central interior, just a little below 0 out there along the southern coast of the Seward Peninsula, but that below 0 conditions right into the northern Bering Sea, contrasting quite a bit, but eventually looks like below freezing temperatures will work back into the Pribilofs here in the southeast Bering. 22 the forecast low at King Salmon, and then mid-30s here for the peninsula and the Aleutians, and below 0 conditions into the Copper River Basin, which should stay above 0, some cloudiness here over south central Alaska, Palmer, Anchorage, Wasilla, and those areas. 20s here along the coast to 20s and 30s, in some cases mid-30s over the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow, very cold up here over the northeast. Milder to the west, edging above 0 in some areas, into the 20s over Bristol Bay, near 40 again along the Alaska Peninsula, but upper 20s there for the Pribilofs, and 30s to near 40 over the Panhandle. Flying weather, pretty good VFR again over much of the interior. Could be some patchy fog and low stuff here in places. Otherwise, just basically from the Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet northward, until you get at some point out over the North Slope, you run into some marginal stuff, and then possible IFR on the east side. Areas IFR out over the Bering Sea, but not too bad down to the south. Again, that moisture mostly to the south or north of the area. Some of that slipping east to Kodiak. Could start out IFR early on, as it'll probably be tonight, and then it should improve gradually throughout the day tomorrow, and marginal to IFR conditions across all of the Panhandle. For Anaktuvuk, look for occasional VFR tomorrow, or mostly VFR. It will be VFR the entire day for both Anaktuvuk and Adigan passes. Lake Clark and Merrill, same forecast, good VFR. Maybe on the southern pass there on the eastern approach, could be a little bit of marginal stuff possibly, but rainy up to the north, better VFR. Windy in the VFR again, as well as Isabel, Mentasta. All those passes VFR, even Tanita looking wide open tomorrow. And Portage, VFR, I think, through the day, but always a chance of some stuff slipping into the eastern entrance there, but I think it'll stay open. Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels at the surface here, almost right along the Aleutians, kind of edging its way into Bristol Bay and then back along the coast on down the Panhandle. A little bit warmer conditions there with those that system coming east and northeast. And in the front and with that will be some icing below 12,000 feet here, sliding eastward across the Panhandle. And then possibly below 7,000 or below 5,000 to 7,000 feet of the Reimer mixed varieties up there over the North Slope, and then back into the Chukchi Sea, and then some hit and miss stuff out over the Aleutians, some of that of which could get up to the southwest coast. And the winds aloft showing the northern part of the state under the influence of the Arctic jet, while the southern area is becoming a little more southwesterly here with a trough out over the Bering Sea, and that'll continue to kind of increase, become more under the influence of the southern branch of the jet. So not looking for temperatures to really get too much cooler. In fact, go back into a warming trend after tomorrow evening. 9,000 foot winds, strongest across the Gulf of Alaska into the Panhandle, back to the eastern Aleutians. Same thing at 3,000 feet here, but Note the light conditions up over the eastern interior into the northern panhandle. And turbulence-wise, moderate chop, Kodiak Island, back out toward the eastern Aleutians, St. Lawrence Island, just like today, through the Bering Strait, east side of the Arctic coast, but that improving later tonight and throughout the day tomorrow. And moderate chop expected over the southern southeast coast. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
During the past week, you have probably heard at least one news story about a missing hiker, a fisherman, or a pilot and passengers. If that missing person is someday you, the next 7 minutes, the length of this video, can make a difference in whether you live or die. Two experts on survival, Captain Pete Savage and Warrant Officer Steve Lewis of the Alaska Army National Guard, have 7 steps to follow if you ever find yourself stranded in the wilderness. The 7 steps to survival are recognition, inventory, signaling, shelter, water, food, and play.
Hey, when you ever find yourself in a survival situation, you kind of want to think of the 7 steps of survival to kind of get you in the right flow and get you moving in the right direction to successfully survive a situation that you might not otherwise do. Recognition is probably one of the most important steps in a survival situation, because that's knowing that you're getting yourself into a bad situation and going, hey, am I starting to get hypothermic? Am I cold? Am I lost? Am I somewhere I shouldn't be? And do I need to hunker down for the night, and so make sure that I can survive the night and survive the next couple of days, if that's how long it's going to take me to get out of this specific situation or to get rescued.
The second step to survival is inventory. That's checking every pocket, bag, and the surrounding area for anything that can help you survive.
Inventory is also very important, because there's been some instances I've read about up in Fairbanks where a lady was with her couple of kids, and she was out for, I don't remember the specific amount of time, but it was significant, and she couldn't start a fire because she didn't have any matches. And then when she was at home going through her stuff to throw it in the wash, I heard she came up with a little lighter in her pocket she didn't even know about. And the situation could be even worse than that, so make sure you check all your pockets, check all your survival gear and all the little pockets in your pack and so on. Look for anything that might be useful, and never throw anything away. You can imagine that a safety clip might seem insignificant at one point, but a day later it could be something to tie your jacket back together if a zipper broke. You basically have active signals, like your flares and smoke signals and fires and so on, that take a moderate amount of work to keep going, whereas your passive signals, your panel markers, VS-17s, and so on, you just lay out and...
Lewis says a key thing to remember about active signals is to make sure that before you use them, an airplane or search party is close enough to see the signal.
There's lots of situations where people pop their smoke or pop their flares, and there's no planes or anybody around to see it. And then they're gone when the plane does fly by. And a plane could fly right over the top of us right now. If we didn't have a way to signal them, we'd be out of luck.
Shelter is the 4th step to survival, and Savage and Lewis show us how to construct a lean-to using just natural vegetation, common to many areas in Alaska.
Here you have a lean-to shelter using skunk cabbage leaves like shingles to dissipate water from the roof of an improvised shelter. Not only can you use natural vegetation, but you can use water-repellent materials such as a poncho, visqueen, even the skin of a plane can be used in a shingle-type fashion. These are very water-repellent, and they are very good natural vegetation. You'll find them in a lot of low-lying areas. You also have pine boughs that we can use. They'll break the wind from entering the shelter. I'm going to stay warm and dry. That's the biggest thing. This primarily keeps me dry from the wet ground. I put it on. One match here, get it down here. You start with small kindling and tinder, and you make sure that gets going good. Okay, once I've got my fire started, it dissipates most of the bugs. It throws a little heat this way into the shelter. I want to block maybe any wind coming in with my big leaves from the skunk cabbage, I can either use that or boughs. Take the bivy sack, put it on up over my shoulder, and now I can lie down and rest.
Your body can't function very long without water, so the fifth step to survival is water collection. Savage explains how to collect and purify water in the wilderness.
We have a number of items set up, like a poncho catch basin, which water comes down as it comes down from the sky as rain, catches in a basin that's made from your poncho, and it filters out through the neck of the poncho, where you can either have a canteen at the bottom where you can catch that water for drinkable water. You can also use water out of streams. The only problem is that some of the streams have algae and bacteria in them that can make you sick. So they do make filters now, like Kakadin water filters, which are ceramic filters. It'll screen some of the microorganisms in the water so that it won't affect you, that are fairly small and miniaturized, that you can put in a survival kit. They also make tablets that'll actually kill the bacteria or the microorganisms in the water, but you're still drinking it without a filtration system.
As your animal comes across here and trips this thing here, it pops down and the rock hits the animal. And voila, dinner.
Food is an obvious component of survival, but keeping a high morale is also important. Savage and Lewis combine the final two steps for survival, food and play, into one, showing how to make the search for food fun.
What I have is I'll have a rope with a little stick tied on the back of it. What I do is I just stick it through here, through the little inverted A you have here, and it basically locks back there real easy. And what then you do is you take this and kind of turn it down so that you can stick a trigger stick under there that will just barely hold it back there rather than really severely holding it back there. You stick the stick back there. Then this little triggering device is where you're going to have your food, and the animal just has to just barely touch the food, and the rock comes dropping down.
What you see here is a rabbit coming down the game trail. You'll look at the snare that has the piece of peanut butter. My hand, being the animal, will go ahead and grab the bait stick where the morsel is, and he thinks he's going to get away with it, but as he trips it, he gets caught. I'm caught on the wire. You can see this wire here, that's to the stick, and I can't get away.
Welcome back. We'll look for mostly southwest winds, 25 to 40 knots out here along the coast, and basically south, 25 to 30 knots over the inside waters. And then for Monday, lighter winds becoming southeast, most areas more easterly up here on the north coast. Lighter winds tending towards southeast directions over the inside waters areas, and coming up to 20 or 25 knots in the afternoon, up to 30 knots. Small craft advisories here from about Port Alexander on down, with possible minimum gales late in the afternoon. For Prince William Sound, mostly north tomorrow, kind of variable for Cook Inlet, south 15 for the Kamishak Bay area, northwest 30 for the Barren Islands, southwest coming down from the gales here to small craft advisories for Kodiak Island, westerlies at about 25 along the north coast. And then on Monday, things swing around in direction here in response to that next big system that's about to move up to the north. So easterlies 20 to 25 knots there from the North Gulf Coast all the way down across Kodiak Island, coming up to small craft advisories in the afternoon there. Pretty light though from Shelikof Strait on up to the northeast. And again, kind of a variable wind condition here for Cook Inlet. Could see some pretty good gusts coming out of Turnagain Arm in the north, but lighter through and just south of the Forelands. Bristol Bay, south 30 knots. Gales here from Kodiak Island back along the southern side of the Alaska Peninsula. And then those really lightening up on Monday. Southeast 15, Bristol Bay, southwest 15 to 20 for the peninsula. Out in the Aleutians, north winds 25 knots, taking a turn to more westerly direction here for the central areas at about 30 knots. And then gale force winds here on the Pacific side of the eastern Aleutians with small crafts to the north. Then becoming northwest, 10 to 20 knots for the Fox Islands on Monday. Northeast, 25 maybe here north of Atka, but it looks like below small craft advisory levels for Adak, and then even lighter winds back out to the west. For the Bering Sea on the southwest coast, northerlies 25 to 30 knots tomorrow, right up to St. Lawrence Island. Heavy freezing spray here continuing over the northern Bering Sea, and that'll be actually could possibly slip on down into the Pribilofs on those northerly winds throughout the day tomorrow. And then northwest winds lighter here from the Pribilofs up to the southwest coast, and from Nunivak Island northward, those northerlies continue. Still looking at small craft or brisk wind advisories for St. Lawrence Island, but lighter winds over the northern Bering Sea. And on the east side, again, lighter wind conditions, north 10 here on the central coast, only 15 knots over on the east side there. And northerlies 15 to 20 knots for the west coast right on down to the Bering Strait. And a look at Monday in these areas, increasing back up to brisk wind levels here for the Chukchi Sea, dropping back just 10 to 15 knot northeasterlies, central and west side. Really light winds, variable to maybe east, just 5 to 10 knots along the eastern stretch of the coastline. And for tonight, again, chance of snow with this low pressure area out over the southeast Bering Sea, reaching down to possibly the eastern Aleutians there with a band of moisture over to Kodiak. So periods of snow tonight or fog, and then this moisture area and the gusty winds spreading back up to the southeast coast. And this area right here will slide into the southern areas with some rain, heavy at times late tonight, and through early tomorrow that'll break out to some showers in the afternoon. Just some chances of snow here along the North Gulf Coast. Clear and cold in the interior, less wind as I mentioned, and pretty good conditions up to the north, although on the below zero side. And that'll continue through Monday as well, with a weak system penetrating the south central interior. The stronger storm down here to the south, spreading rain into the Panhandle. Have a great evening. Good night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.